Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our third session in this workshop series on things to do before you get started with your marketing. Now, we've covered finding out what your ideal client looks like, going out and interviewing your ideal client so you can get even more information, more insight as to why they chose you. Now that we have that information, now we got to do something with it. And that is create a killer message. And basically, this is what's going to make your MSP different and make your competition irrelevant, because it's going to focus so narrowly on what you're best at and what outcomes you drive the best for what types of clients. This is what's going to make everything work and make it so much more effective. So, of course, I'm not the expert here. I don't claim to be. I just love this MSP stuff and like bringing information like this to the All Things MSP audience. So, of course, Tim Fitzpatrick from Rialto Marketing, back for episode 3. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back, and excited to dig into this.
Awesome. Now, of course, don't forget, at the end of this session, just like the previous two, we have a worksheet available so that you can go and take this and actually do it inside of your MSP business. Now, Tim, today is about creating that killer message. And to me, messaging comes down to focus, because the more you try and cast a wide net, it's either going to be very expensive or very ineffective.
Yep.
And that's what I have found with very generic marketing. So I assume that the reason for doing this is to laser focus this messaging to make it super effective.
Yeah, one of my mentors said specificity sells. And that's what we're doing here. We're getting as specific as we possibly can with our message so that it resonates with the exact people we intend to work with, right? And all 3 of these workshops, the first one we did then builds to the second, and the second builds to the third, right? We've got to do this in this sequence, because if you do them out of sequence, it is not going to work, right? The sequencing of our marketing activities is just as important as what we actually do. So we can't craft a killer message until we understand who our ideal clients are. I mean, it sounds silly to say that, but I mean, it's true. And so many people skip it. So that's why we're talking about creating a killer message in this third step.
Yeah. And I would imagine that part of that sequence is what you're going to show us now, because a lot of us think of marketing as just creating content and putting it out there, right?
Yeah.
But before you go to make that content, you have to have what you call a core message to be able to drive all of that content in alignment in one direction. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And just so folks know, we're going to cover 3 important messaging elements. They are not the only messaging elements, but we're going to talk about 3 of what I think are some of the most important messaging elements here to help differentiate your MSP and create consistency. Because to me, it's not just one thing that's going to differentiate your MSP. It's a combination of multiple things coming together. And so don't think one thing is going to solve that messaging problem. But so, yes, the first thing we need to look at is our core message. And our core message is how we're going to clearly communicate the unique benefits of working with our MSP. It's that short 1-sentence message that may be in our signature line of our emails. It's at the top of our website, right? It's just something that is repeated over and over again. And it needs to be very clear, concise, and simple to understand.
So it's almost like the essence of your value proposition or your elevator pitch, something like that.
Yeah. It's, think of it. I would say it's shorter than an elevator pitch, right? But it's, here's some brainstorming questions to think about, right? What makes you different from your competitors? And by the way, this stuff is going to come from your ideal client interviews. That's another reason why they're so important, right? But what promises can you make that are going to solve your client's problems, right? What's the core problem you solve? Why should clients choose you over another provider? These are great questions to ask yourself that will start to give you ideas of where you might want to focus. And look, I'll give an example outside of the MSP space, because I think this is one that a lot of people that will resonate with people. But this was this is probably 6 to 8 years ago now, but I had worked with a residential siding contractor. So they did home siding, roofing, that kind of stuff. That market is not all that different than the MSP space. If you go to 5 of those websites or 5 MSP websites, typically they say pretty much the same thing. High quality roofing and siding, or, we're the number 1 roofing contractor in Detroit. Like, who cares? Nobody cares about that. When we started working with this client, one of the things we did was we looked at all their Google reviews. And by the way, looking at reviews for you or your competitors is a treasure trove of information. So do not overlook them. But we started to look at it, and there was a woman there who said, gosh, what I loved about these guys is they treated my house like it was their own. That became their core message, right? That was the promise that they were making that was going to help differentiate them. We'll treat your house like it's our own. Think about all the feelings and the thoughts that conjures up, because high quality product is table stakes. They expect you to have high quality products, but not everybody treats your house like it's their own, right? There's roofing nails in your yard for the next 3 years. They come in and there's dirt all over your floor. They don't clean up the yard when they're done. If they treat your house like it's their own, they're also like, who wants to do a bad job on their own house? Nobody, right? So there's so many things that are implied in that core message as well. So that's the thought and the concept behind our core message. Where you should be focusing really is going to start to come to the surface as you start to gather that client interview data and hear in their own words what they're saying about you.
And then this next one is something this is the one that I was interested in, because I get core message. I get the third one that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. But the second one, this one is the one that caught my eye. And it's the question you put here is, what is a point of view? And I'm interested to find out, what is the point of view and why does it matter when we're putting together the killer message?
So your point of view is all about what you believe as a company, right? Point of view statements make your messaging magnetic, right? Because you're expressing your unique beliefs or stances. Okay, so points of view come into play a lot when we talk about creating content, social media content, email marketing content, because if you're just saying the exact same thing that everybody else does, your message is bland, it's boring, and your points of view help differentiate you from your competitors, and it also lets people know like what you believe in, and that is going to naturally start to attract people that believe that too, or that message resonates with. It's very difficult to stand out on social media. There's all kinds of noise. Your points of view can help you stand out and attract people. So that's where your points of view come in. So when we think about crafting our points of view, and you'll have multiple points of view, 3 to 5, I think, is a pretty good number to shoot for. You can have more, but 3 to 5 is a good place to start. But ask yourself some of these questions, like, what do we believe that other MSPs don't? Perfect point of view to start talking about. What common belief do you disagree with? Right? Are there beliefs that most people in the MSP community believe that you're just like, man, that's just garbage? Like, that makes no sense at all. What do you believe that protects your clients from harm? or how is that belief affecting your audience, right? And what can you do about it? Right? These are great questions to ask to start thinking about your points of view, right? And so, I think as I say this, most of you will start to think about things that you believe, that you've always believed them, but you just don't communicate them. You haven't put them out there into the world. It's those things that you can start to look at and say, hey, is this a good point of view for me to start putting out there, right? Like, for example, I know there are a lot of people in the IT world that are very reactive, right? And they're not proactive. That could be like IT should be proactive and not reactive, right? That could be an example of a point of view in the IT space. There's all kinds of others. Gosh, with cyber, there's so many different things I think that you could come up with. We just need to get creative here and think about it. Are there ways that MSPs are typically approaching cyber and IT that you don't believe? Great way to put out a point of view.
So I'm grasping here, but this is I'm going to try and put an analogy together.
Okay.
That maybe fits. And I'm putting together a submarine sandwich that is going to appeal to a certain type of client. Yep. And my core message is roast beef, chicken, or ham. Mm-hmm. Right?
Sure.
Whatever my core message is, it's going to appeal to a different type of client, whether they like roast beef, chicken, or ham.
Yep.
And then the point of view is all of those other smaller things that kind of weave in there. It's, do they like onions? Do they like jalapenos? Do they like vinegar? You're taking all that ideal client profile stuff that we did in the previous 2 episodes, and you're bringing it together to create this point of view sandwich with the things that those people are going to align with and resonate with.
Yep, absolutely. That's a very good way to look at it. Right, you've got
I'm sorry to minimize it down to food.
No, yeah. Are you hungry? No. It's a great analogy, right? The main part of the sandwich is that core message, and then all the other things are the ingredients, the bread to make that entire sandwich. When I think about messaging, I think about it as a playbook. All of these elements are bits and pieces to the playbook. And when you're crafting a message, no matter what it's for, you go back to your playbook and pull what you need, right? Or think about them as pieces of Lincoln Logs or Legos, right? They're all little pieces, and you grab the pieces you need, you put them together, and you got the message that you're going to put out. But the message needs to be consistent over time. And having that playbook creates that consistency. Because if we're changing the message up every time, it's never going to resonate, because they're seeing a different message every time. And, in marketing, they talk about the rule of 7, where it takes at least 7 impressions. Now I've heard people talk about, with digital, it's way more than that, 15, 20 or more impressions. Man, if they're seeing a different message every time, you're never going to get there. We need to have consistency over time.
Yep. It's going to dilute it too much if you're doing too many different things.
Yep.
Okay. So we've got core message. We've got point of view. What about your third one, which is competitive advantage?
Yep. So with our competitive advantage, the competitive advantage elements are things that we put out there that help us become the logical choice. Okay. And with the competitive advantage, we want to make sure that whatever we're putting out there as a competitive advantage is true, that it's relevant to the audience, to your ideal clients, and that we can prove it. So for example, when I was talking earlier, #1 roofer in Denver, really? Like, how can you prove that? According to what? Like, there's any number of data points that I can grab to prove that I'm the #1 roofer in Denver. Who cares? Okay. So it's got to be true, relevant, and provable. So Here, and what we're shooting for here are 3 to 5 differentiators that you can use. Some of your competitors may have an identical differentiator, but it's the combination of you, it's your unique combination that helps you stand out, right? So here's some brainstorming questions, right? Like, how can you help clients save or make money, save time, reduce risk, or eliminate hassles? Those are all great things to focus on to create competitive advantage elements. What differentiates your business in ways that really matter, again, that are relevant to your clients? What's going to blow them away? Is there a promise you can make, something you can say that's going to absolutely blow them away? Like, nobody does that. And what can you say about your expertise that others just won't, right? Or they're afraid to. I'm going to give you guys an example. And this is, again, outside of the MSP space, because I think it'll resonate. And, again, we're a little close to it as MSPs day in, day out. But I am looking for a new mechanic for my car. I've taken my car into the people that I've been working with for a long time, and they keep telling me that nothing's wrong, and there's something wrong. I know it. And so I started looking for another mechanic, and I went to this local mechanic's website, and they had a content block that had probably 4 to 5 differentiators on there. One of them said loaner cars, right? I'm dropping my only vehicle off. I'm not going to have a car for however long. They'll give me a loaner car. The other thing that they said in there was, we'll pay for your Lyft or Uber charges, right? So again, I could drop my car. Maybe I'm not going to have to deal with it. Maybe I don't need it for the next few days, but damn, I'm still going to spend like $50 in Lyft fees getting to and from the mechanic. Those are 2 differentiators that the minute I read those, I was like, that is so cool that they freaking do that.
Yeah.
Some do loaner cars, not all. I've never seen somebody say that they'll pay for my Lyft fees. That goes back to them understanding their ideal clients and what's really important. They're not sitting there talking about, oh yeah, we're the greatest mechanic. Like, dude, I expect you to do a good job. I expect you to be trustworthy. They had focused on 2 hyper relevant differentiators for me. And if you look at those, they are true, right? Like, I mean, it's easy to, they either do it or they don't.
Right.
They're relevant to me, and they're provable because I walk in there and it's like, yeah, we'll give you a loaner car. Here it is, right? So that's an example outside of the industry, but we want to shoot for 3 to 5 differentiators.
And what I like about your example, by the way, is it kind of goes to the old Toyota method of asking why 5 times to get to the root problem. Because the root problem is not that my car is broken. The root problem is I can't get to work because my car is broken.
Exactly.
And so if you give me a loaner car, you are actually solving my root problem, not, the symptom.
Yeah. And it goes back to, I think we touched on this in one of the first few workshops where, we're saying, look, people don't buy IT. They buy what IT can do for them and for their business. Right. And so it's with IT, we're solving a larger business problem, and that's what they care about. So, it's, look, a lot of times in the IT space, response time is an issue. Can you make promises about response time that other MSPs just won't make? That's a way you can differentiate. Look, I know there are a lot of MSPs, and I understand why MSPs do it, looking for long-term contracts. How many clients do you actually think love to sign long-term contracts? If you are willing to do things that are not on a long-term contract basis, that could help differentiate your MSP. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you should do that, but that is an example of how you could differentiate when most MSPs are looking for 2-3 year contracts.
Yep. So we've covered core message, point of view, and competitive advantage, and why all three of those combined create a killer message. Now, what have you included in this episode's worksheet to help them get this done?
Yeah, so the worksheet walks you through each one of these. It provides those brainstorming questions that I mentioned, gives you your action items, and then gives you some examples of each of them. I've tried to give you guys examples as we walked through this, but there's some more in there to help try and kind of hammer these points home. But I'm going to tell you guys, if you do even these three things, and there are other ways that you can continue to improve your messaging playbook, but if you did just these three things, you're head and shoulders above the vast majority of MSPs.
Awesome. So, Tim, thank you so much for helping me put this series together and being the brains behind it. Really, thank you for creating the worksheets so they can take what we've told them in these quick snippets of videos and actually put them into action in their business.
Love it. Happy to do it. Thanks for having me, Eric.
Awesome. And make sure you go ahead and download those worksheets. They're all in the same folder. There's a link in the description or in the post. And of course, I've put it down here at the bottom of the video as well. So check those out and get these things done the next time you're trying to ramp up and start marketing your MSP business, because they are critical and they will help drive efficiencies and effectiveness that you're just not going to get if you try and go out there and do the spray and pray type of marketing.